Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome for this Sunday lazy evening session. We kept it on Sunday because Sunday is a good time to just feel relaxed and ponder over good things in life. And obviously, investing is one of the better things to do in life and kind of brings financial security for to all of us. So we thought of discussing returns, discussing investments on Sunday with everybody who's keen on kind of seeing their wealth grow and kind of securing themselves financially over the years. So this is a session today.
So we have our panelists. Siddhant Raizada, he is the Chief Marketing Officer at Crystal.ai, and Himanshu Naskani, he is the head of our India advisory team. And they are going to tell you it's not just for first-time investors, but investors who've already started. They're probably not seasoned. They've started their investment journey, but they are still unclear about a lot of things, and they are wondering right now whether this is the right time to start investing or invest in funds, ETFs or not. So let's start the discussion. Over to you, Siddhant.
Hey, thanks for quick introduction. Hey guys, we are just two guys who have been in the investing space for many years, and I think this is a good session for us to share with you our learnings and what worked for us and what didn't work for us and what we've seen succeed over the span of the last 15, 20 years that we have been kind of observing this market. I'll just kind of quickly share with you the agenda, how we kind of run this webinar session. So we'll keep it broadly for 1 hour, but we can extend it if needed. We'll kind of first quickly do a short presentation on kind of setting the stage, kind of addressing few key concerns that people may have about investing, about how to get started. And then we're going to open the session for Q&A. And we'll kind of keep this session informal. So if you have any questions, you can always chat, kind of open the chat window and send a message to us. And we are looking at the chat window, so we'll kind of take up any questions that come up. And don't worry if you kind of have a question we answer and then we come back with a second question a while later. That's okay. We just kind of keep it open and as candid as we can. And in case you want to refer this webinar, this video will be shared with you via link through an email, and we'll also kind of upload it on a YouTube channel that we have. So you can kind of refer it and kind of refer it again and revisit the discussions today. Let me just kind of establish that why are we doing this session now, given the fact that the markets are down and everybody is kind of running away. Even Warren Buffett is not investing in these markets. So why is Crystal addressing this question? That is it a good time to start investing? I think I've seen three reasons why people have come to us. The discussion that we have with clients when they're starting opening their Crystal account. They are the three broad reasons more popular reasons that I could say that I've come across. One is the kind of first time people who just got out of college, they joined a job, and while their job is not at risk, they are saying that, you know what, the recession like these is something I have to really prepare for. I know this is going to come again in some form or the shape. How do I kind of secure myself against such financial movements, against such uncertainties at workplace? So that's one reason why they want to really build a corpus, build some kind of fund to kind of help them tide over these economic, financial stressful times. The second reason that a lot of people have come to us is for the kids' education. A lot of parents are sending their kids to international boards, school with international boards. And they're rightfully thinking that if I intend to send my kid overseas in a few years, 6, 10 or 15 years, I should be saving for that fund in dollars, not in Indian rupees. And that is one of the second most popular reasons for people are looking at coming on board, starting investing, whether in India or outside. So kids' education is obviously becomes very important after the emergency fund, kind of your responsibility that parents have, that let me just put my kid to a good college and he can then take care of his financial needs post that. And the last thing is, I think a lot of people who are in their 35 and 40 and kind of have a stable job are not really worried about losing job. They are seeing at this, you know what, I have never done this. I'm very conservative. I've been away from the markets, but the prices are so low. I would really want to take advantage of these prices. I've never seen such, people are telling me the prices are so attractive. So So they're seeing opportunities, they're seeing value in the prices they see right now, and they want to really get started with it, but they don't know how to get started. So there's obviously an inhibition. There's also always some kind of concern, anxiety. And these anxieties and concerns have been added by some recent kind of discussion that we see on social media. The first one, I happen to be part of a group, and on that group, again, was first-time investor, has always been in FDs and PPF, and he was just asking, should I invest now? And he was showing a chart of mutual fund returns versus FD, and say, you know what? See, look how mutual funds are down by 10, 20%, 18%, and it doesn't really make sense. If my mutual fund can't really help me in these recession times, then why should I even think about? Is it worth? Where is the value in taking so much of risk? So that's one popular question, doubt, and then something that causes anxiety, and we'll address this during a course of the discussion. The second more popular thing that has happened recently is, Franklin Templeton. Franklin Templeton had just closed down 2 of their funds, and rightfully so. A lot of people are kind of looking at it with a lot of skepticism, and kind of yeah. So a lot of people are looking at it with some kind of skepticism, and worried that, what if this can happen to a large fund? Is it really safe? Franklin Templeton is such a credible name. If they kind of shut their shop, what will happen to me? Even if debt funds are so risky, then is it really worth it? Very legitimate questions, and I think we'll address these 2 concerns as well. But before we go, I think we have to cover the basics, and I would kind of request my friend here, Himanshu, to why don't you help cover the basics first of investing before we get into the concerns people have. So Himanshu, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Rai. Hi, everyone. So I think the first thing that we need to think about before investing is, do I have enough cash? Do I have a spare cash to invest? Or have I covered my emergency fund already? So, so if one thinks about it, emergency fund, a lot of people define like 6 months of spare cash, or let's say 1 year of spare cash, and that is equivalent to your 1 year of, let's say, monthly income. So that's what a lot of people kind of think about it. This actually goes back to what Rai was mentioning, that if there is a recession and if there are unforeseen circumstances, then do I have enough cash to survive or to tide through that recession? So that's one part. The second part is, do I have time to research? This actually goes back to the question that if I want to invest on my own, then do I have the skill set, ability, and time to do stock specific research, or let's say corporate bond specific research, and can I invest on my own? And then the third one is, are my expectations real? So a lot of people kind of try to time the market, try to enter low, exit high, and then come back again, enter low, exit high, and in the process they get frustrated when they don't earn enough returns over a period of time. And as Warren Buffett has put it, and a lot of legendary investors have put it, it's a futile exercise to time the market. So and when we think about these 3 things, the answer to these questions are, if I don't have enough fund, let's say if I don't have sufficient capital to go big, then what do? I start small. And when one say that I start small, it's actually a spare cash, whatever I have, spare capital that I want to invest in. That's it. And the second part is, when the whole capital is small, then I really don't want to bet big on one single horse. And which is what we kind of say, that diversify. That's the way to go about it. And the second one is, if I don't have enough time, then what do? So then there are a couple of ways to kind of sort this problem out. One is that a lot of people go through mutual funds way, but then a lot of people get stuck with only one kind of mutual funds, which is, let's say, I will only do equity mutual funds. Then other set of investors kind of go with debt mutual funds. Now as we have seen over the last 2-3 years, equity mutual funds and have performed really bad, especially because of the last 2-3 months of COVID crisis. Then how to sort this problem? That if I have to invest through mutual funds, then what do? The answer to that is, either we have the concept of asset allocation with us, down to our DNA, or then there are advisors and investment advisors who can kind of guide us through the asset allocation framework and how to invest in mutual funds, which are the good funds, and which funds to avoid. So that's the second part. Then the third part is have realistic expectations. Now, this is what is the realistic expectation. So when one say I should have a realistic expectation, then there are multiple components of it. One is I should have an expectation for long-term investing. And when one say long-term investing, it actually spends, let's say, a couple of years, more than a lot of people say more than 5 years, but at least bare minimum, let's say 3 years plus. And then the second thing is I shouldn't try to time the market, which is I shouldn't be entering in, exiting in, and again thinking that I will be able to enter back at a lower prices. Now the whole concept of investment is buy low, sell high, but there's a difference between buy low, sell high and trying to time the market. But we will kind of cover it in next few sessions, but going further. Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
So,
yeah, this is one, I think, Himanshu, you want to address the comparison of mutual funds versus FD. And I think if you can spend some time on this.
right. So this goes back to a previous question that mutual fund returns have been lower than FD, and this is something which has been floating around a lot. Now we need to kind of think about that there are, let's say, 3-4 types of mutual funds. One are equity, debt mutual funds, liquid mutual funds, gold mutual funds, and all. Most of us know that debt mutual funds, liquid mutual funds have performed really well over the last 3-4 years. On the equity mutual funds, we somehow there is a perception which has which a lot of people have is that equity mutual funds have performed really bad. Now, when one says or one believes that equity mutual funds have performed really bad, then one needs to look at the horizon. If you look at a horizon of, let's say, last 2-3 years, then definitely yes. But over a long-term time horizon, equity mutual funds, Nifty 50, all these equity asset classes have performed really well. So by looking at this graph, one can see that even if someone had invested at the top of 2000 dot-com crisis, when the prices were like 1650 or something, and when one would and if he or she would have exited, or let's say as on 30th April, when the prices were like 9,800, and these are we are comparing that entry at the peak price and entry and exit at a substantially depressed prices. So even if one would have done that, then also he or she would have earned about 9 to 10% return over, and that is a compounded return. That's an annualized return over the last 20 years.
There's also one important point, Himanshu, which I noticed in this graph. See, a lot of people have this perception that the market is now at the 2008 level. Now, if you just look at this graph, and if you look at the 2008 number, the market's still higher than the 2008 level in terms of its value.
Right. So to answer that question, what happened was in around December 2007, markets were at its peak, which was around slightly lower than 7,000, which was around, let's say, 6,800 or 700 something. And then if you remember last month, markets went down till 7,500. So that's where this comparison is being drawn, that markets kind of reached where they were in 2007, late 2007 and early 2008. It was very close, and that's why this comparison is being made. But even if one thinks about that a person who would have entered in 2007, which is, let's say, December 2007, which is the peak of global financial crisis, and would have just stayed back, then also he would have earned a reasonable returns, slightly about the same, similar to the levels of FD. The important thing is that he wouldn't have lost money, even if the person would have entered at the peak of global financial crisis and would have just stayed through. So over a long-term horizon, equities are generally considered to be really less risky. I wouldn't go to the extent of saying risk-free, but it's really almost similar to no risk or very, very little risk.
Yeah, I think I also read an article a few days back. I think it was some of the fund houses, if I'm not mistaken, about Vanguard Fidelity. I forget the name. The name is, but I think what they pointed out that when you look at a 10-year horizon, the risk between a FD and a kind of index fund or a broad-based equity fund is actually very low. Is actually kind of very comparable. So on a long fund, the risks go away. And I think this chart would be very, very important during the discussions that we'll have in the Q&A. I'm sure a lot of people want to revisit this and kind of probe this graph further. But let me also ask you to kind of address the second part, which is about the Franklin Templeton thing that happened, and kind of explain or kind of declutter that for a minute for everyone's benefit.
Yes, yes. Very recently, Franklin Templeton had to close down its 6 funds. Most of these were kind of credit funds and short duration funds. One of the things, and this has kind of sent jitters throughout the market. A lot of perception is being built that this is because of the lower credit quality and default and all these phenomena. But the truth is that these funds. So Franklin had actually started getting redemption pressure starting from January, and recently when after the COVID crisis, the redemption pressure increased, and when the Franklin was not able to kind of match that redemption, those redemption levels, then Franklin had to decide to wind down these funds. Now there are a couple of things to notice here. As we can see in the graph as well, that from December onwards, the redemption pressure increased substantially, and similarly, the fund sizes also started going down. Now, not a single underlying firm has defaulted. So all these Franklin investments, which have kind of which have invested in NBFCs and power sector and infra sector. As we all know that there was a moratorium given by the RBI, so and these NBFCs were not able to kind of pay back, collect the money from the borrowers, and hence their ability to also repay debt mutual fund investors also went down. But none of them can be termed as a default. So although Franklin used to pioneer the lower credit space of India, and Franklin can be termed as a starter of this kind of credit space. What actually happened was that in this credit space, the liquidity kind of dried up, and when liquidity dried up, they were not able to sell the underlying debt securities. Also, the liquidity pressure increased because of redemption, and that's how everything kind of went in a singular direction. So, of course, these kind of black swan events happen, but hopefully over the next 1 or 2 years, when the maturities, when the underlying issuer firms will match their payments, the investors will also get their money back.
Yeah, I think let's see. I think people will have questions about these as well when we open the Q&A session. So maybe we'll revisit it. So so I think I'm just going through the last slide before we open for a Q&A, Himanshu, and we're kind of close to a 15-minute window. Yeah, so I think how would you want to summarize? Kind of this is an important slide to kind of before we open up for Q&A and broad discussion.
Yes. So going back to our original theme, whether it's a good time to invest or not, it actually depends on a couple of items. One, do I have the spare cash? If yes, then yes, it's a good time to invest. Do I have kept aside enough sufficient money for my emergency needs? If yes, then yes, it's a good time to invest. Because one also needs to think about that. One can look at it from an opportunity perspective. Of course, one doesn't need to put in all the money, all the spare cash that one has right now. Probably a good idea will be to probably start investing in a SIP manner, putting 10 to 20% right now at these levels, and start increasing this amount. So that's one part. And then the second part is when is it not a good time to invest? So if one is expecting to get rich overnight, or if one is expecting to kind of double, triple their money in a year's time, then probably it's not the right expectation to have, and it's not a right time to invest. Even also a lot of people get inspired by Warren Buffett and Peter Lynch of the world. One needs to understand that all these people started really, really early. All these investors started really early in their life, and they just stayed on course. And time is the best friend that you have, and any investor price, and that's what one should bet on.
Yeah, I think I just want to add one another point over here that, you know what, as we just kind of shared, this is not stock market. Don't take this as a gamble. This is not like a gambling game. You are not here. You are not in Vegas trying to play your bets. It's a methodological approach, and I think expectations have to be real. If you are looking, so it's a good time to invest if you are taking bet on the entire market and not a particular stock or equity. Because even I was listening to the talk by Warren Buffett yesterday, and he said, you know what, it's not a good, he doesn't know where to kind of park the money right now, but he that's is value for a stock picking point of view. But if you can always go for an index fund and things like that to kind of cover the risk and still start small and kind of take advantage of the rally. And yes, if you are kind of trying to, if you don't have the knowledge of the markets and you're trying to become overnight rich, it's never a good time, either now or ever, to kind of start investing. So there's a question, I think, by Mr. Harpal. On the chat window, there's a question by Mr. Harpal also on the same line that that we are defending the Franklin funds, but he wants to have a view on regarding the portfolio of the companies they extended credit to, and that they are poor rated. Himanshu, you want to opine on that?
Yeah, so I'll probably want to opine on what Firdaus is saying, and Firdaus, I agree with you. Franklin actually invested in a lower grade bond. Franklin's strength lied in investing in lower graded bonds. But just that over the last couple of years, when the market was going good, they did really well. Is that a lot of things came together when this black swan event happened, and redemption pressure, inability of these corporates, lower graded corporates, kind of do the repayment on their papers, and their inability to also kind of sell these to other mutual funds, which also kind of goes back to the question that they were lower rated corporates. So yes, I think as a statement, you are absolutely correct, and that's one of the reasons why Franklin went down and not other mutual funds.
Yeah, I think I just want to add to that. I mean, the reason we are kind of talking about this fund is not to say that every fund house out there or every corporate debt fund out there is necessarily has the same issues with Franklin. There may be some fund issues specific to the fund manager. But I think the important part is to have the perspective clear. The objective of this putting that point out was not to say that there should not be any panic that is set in. I think that's the point that we are trying to address. Investors should not really judge the entire investment ecosystem, be it debt funds or corporate side, with the issue of one fund house. And we just want to put that issue of the fund house also into perspective. We are not trying to defend the actions of the fund house, but just to say that it's the mostly liquidity pressure that kind of created this panic of kind of panic for redemptions. Yes, economy is in the stress, and companies are kind of going to have their pressure on the revenue, and the companies that maybe they are holding maybe in a stress. But right now, so far, typically when the default, these things happen, the news comes out that the companies are defaulting. So that news hasn't come out yet. So as of this point, the issue largely seems to be a panic of redemptions and liquidity crisis. That's what's been driving the factor, the ending flight for the capital. There's another question that has come from Mr. Hanmant. He says that if I invested, can I short my stock? Not sure I understand that. You might, I don't know if you can open the chat window, Himanshu. Do you understand the question? I'm hoping I'm not kind of reading between the lines here.
This one you're looking at from NIP.
So I'm looking at the chat window.
Yeah, right.
And I'm looking, and then there is a few questions there was question on chat window as well.
Yeah. Shall I? Okay. Okay, I can't see that right now, but let me start with the questions which I can see right now.
Sure.
So there is a question from Rishabh Trivedi. Is there a good time to invest, not invest? What's the criteria?
Yeah.
Consider there is some spare cash available. So Rishabh, assuming that you have spare cash available, then the good time to start investing is now, today, and there is never going to be a better time to start investing. That's what we want to convey. Just a word of caution that you don't have to put all the spare cash every month or your capital in a single stock, in a single fund at one point in time. You need to diversify. You need to diversify across stocks, you need to diversify across funds, you need to diversify across your time horizon as well. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Rai, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think Rishabh, the one other point I want to address is before you start looking at stocks, it's important you take a step back and think in terms of portfolio. So it's important for you to really think in terms of portfolio first. Think your portfolio, that my portfolio, what percentage of that would be in equity, what percentage of that would be in fixed income, and what percentage of that would be in cash or commodities. I think it's important to have that framework for that becomes a direction for you. Once you have that, then becomes a process of selecting the right fixed income and funds like that. At Crystal, at least we have been recommending for the first time investors that if you're looking at fixed income, then a government-backed security is a good place to be in right now. Something, for example, a Bharat bond is a kind of a good government-backed security to park yourself in right now. If you're looking at equity, then we recommend right now in terms of the lower risk option would be an index fund, something like a Nifty B or Nifty 50 kind of, which is a broad bid index fund, low cost, where you don't have the fund manager risk as well to that level as you will have in a regular fund. So those kind of approaches is better. And then, so for cash and commodities right now, just keep in cash. That would be good. But I think the important part is think in terms of portfolio, and maybe if it's a good question, then maybe we want to take it up in the next webinar that we do.
Yeah. Now,
so moving on to our next question. So it's from Nipun Madan. He asks, is credit space looking weak? What to do with other funds of equity? We might have some legal actions in FT that can lead to FMs exiting, can hamper performance. What happened with JM and AMC? So that's his question.
Yeah. So Nipun, I think one needs to. So before answering this question, I would like to put some disclaimer that that unless we kind of look at your portfolio and look at the specific funds that you are holding, I think it will be a bit tough to answer this question. But still, probably we will give you a broad idea and a broad direction. So credit space is of course looking weak, but in the fixed income space, we need to look at which part of fixed income is looking weak. Whether it's a GSEC or GILT funds, whether it's a credit funds, or whether it's let's say short duration and liquid funds. And specifically under each of these funds, what matters is how there are multiple things which matter. One of the things which matters is how much of the underlying debt papers is invested in corporate credit. And even in corporate credit, is it like quasi-sovereign or is it like really big corporates? So all these things matter before one decides on a fixed income part. On the equity part, what would really matter is how much of the investment or how much of the mutual fund holding is in a small cap, is in mid cap, and how much is in large cap, right? So generally small caps and mid caps take a lot of time to bounce back as and when situation improves. Large caps or the leaders in the market are generally the first ones to bounce back. So I hope that that answers your question. Is specific to your personal profile. I think it would be what we would be able to do is, once we look at your specific risk profile and your specific investments, then we would be able to go into the specifics, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's better we kind of be specific about it. Then I would suggest that kind of Nipun, if you can kind of get in touch with Crystal, share your cash report on an email myscan@crystal.ai. I will kind of run it past the algo and kind of assess the risk of your portfolio. It's a completely free service, so don't worry. It's not just something we are charging for, but it kind of gives us view that if we are recommending, and if anybody from our team advisory team kind of gets in touch with you to discuss your investment, then it's always good to look at your in the context of your existing investments and see what is the next, how should your next investment complement you in terms of diversification, in terms of stability, or in terms of gains. So I think let me take the next question, Arpita, by Nipun, where he says, how can we invest in Berkshire Hathaway through Crystal? Do you have an ETF directly in Berkshire Hathaway? So I think the reason this question is interesting, in terms of aspirations, yes. So Nipun, if there's a company that is listed on a NASDAQ index or an S&P, it's quite likely that we have an ETF where that fund is represented, because we have broad-based index funds. And also I would like to explain, because I think kind of shows your understanding about ETFs. So ETFs are not kind of a fund that we make. ETF are kind of broad-based index funds, which are very popular globally, because A, they are cheaper than regular funds. B, their risk is lower. C, the liquidity issue is not there in terms of, because there's no redemption request that you send to the fund house. It's traded directly on the stock exchange. So if there's enough participants on the market, then you can ensure that there'll be enough buyers and sellers of the ETF. So we may, so ETFs are like that. ETFs are not single stock. So there's not like a single stock ETF. If somebody's telling you a single stock ETF, it's definitely taking you for a ride. But I don't know Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway is anyways very expensive stock. The last time I checked, I think it was close to 200K USD in terms of stock price. So it's going to be a very high ticket single unit. It's not really designed for active buyers. So I think if you we have an accredited account on Crystal through which you can buy individual stocks and equities. So let me put it that way. And if you kind of qualify for the private wealth account, then you can through a brokerage account that we have in Crystal, then you can purchase the direct equity that you like. So I think that's a simple way to address your need. Nitin, can we move to the next question, Arpita? This Nitin's question.
Yes. So I hope that answers Nipun's question. Nitin Nadkarni, he has a question. Can you recommend any fixed income scheme when one can invest now?
Yeah, I think let me take that, Himanshu. There's not one particular scheme that we love. I think our direction has been government-backed debt funds. Debt securities are good to generalize overview. Through our newsletters that we sent out, we have generally talked about government Bharat bond as a good place to kind of get a fixed income. On the global side also, we are recommending similar thing to our clients, that any bond fund that is being purchased by the Fed is a good place to be in. So we have kind of a lot of fixed income ETFs that you'll see on Crystal, and then we can run the algo for you, and it will kind of recommend what's good for you. So there's no one great fixed income scheme that I will kind of push you towards. But I generally say that if you can get your hands on a government-backed security or some fund, like in the global side, which Fed is kind of purchasing heavily, those are generally good places to park yourself right now. But it's become very difficult. It will be unfair right now to kind of pick out one clear winner and say, Nitin, this is the one good for you, because Nitin, I don't know your risk profile and I don't know what your current portfolio is.
Yeah, so I think let me answer this question. So personally, if you ask me what I like, I would say I like Bharat Bond 2023-2030 ETF. Let's say and if you go further, then generally a broad category of GILT funds or GSEP funds is the space which we are right now bullish on. A corporate credit space is something which we are not very bullish on, because we are in the early stages of looking at the impact of COVID crisis. Whatever the earnings and results have come so far, as on 30th March,
yeah.
Right? We still have seen about 1.5 months of lockdown, and we are yet to see probably a bigger impact. And when in doubt, we would want to remain cautious. So that's
yeah.
that's
I think in the same question, Nitin's follow-up question is about gold ETF, right? Is it a good time to put money in a gold ETF? I think his broadly question is, gold is a good place to be in right now. Do we have any direction on that from the?
Yeah. Yeah. So Nitin, when you look at, is it a good time? Would it make sense to put some money in gold ETF now? I would say it probably makes sense to put some money in gold ETF at all the times, because as you would have seen over the last year itself, gold has acted as a hedge against equities and all other instruments, right? So gold naturally is a hedge. If not even now, in historically as well, whenever the equities and other asset classes have started going down simultaneously, gold has acted as a hedge. So generally, it probably makes sense to put some gold ETFs in your basket, but it again then depends on what is your overall portfolio and let's say overall physical portfolio and let's say dematerialized portfolio. So
Yeah,
that kind of probably will
yeah, I
decide
think
how much of the gold.
Himanshu, I think it will also be helpful for Nitin. Nitin, we kind of did a webinar session where we discussed an all-weather portfolio, which has 10% in commodities, and gold is a big part of the commodity asset class.
Yeah.
So I think it's worthwhile. So what we'll do is in the email that we send out to you post the session, we'll share the link to that all-weather portfolio as well. So it will kind of address your question that if I have to put money in gold, what percentage of my portfolio should be in this asset class? It will kind of give you a broad thumb rule of how much to really park and what is the value it will give. Because I would not recommend putting 50% in your gold right now, because then it's the marginal value of that kind of asset class goes down. But it's important to be cognizant that if you have to invest, what percentage. So I think that video will help you. I think we can move to the next question from Harpalji. Harpalji saying, what are the aspects that you will consider before investing in a debt fund? What is when you say looking at debt funds right now? I think he's looking at the current scenario. What are the things that you should look at?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of items that we should look at in a debt fund. Broadly, we can divide it in two parts. One is the underlying, and the second one is the duration. So when one looks at debt funds, then underlying can be a GSEC, or let's say a sovereign security or a quasi sovereign security, or a corporate debt. Now under the corporate debt also, there might be big corporates like Reliance and Lions of the Worlds and HDFC and HDFC banks, and then there might be smaller corporates. What one needs to be really careful about is the percentages of uh, small corporate debt being held by a debt mutual fund. So that's one part in terms of underlying. When one looks at, one needs to be careful about how much of the corporate debt a debt fund is holding, and in corporate debt also how much of, let's say, the smaller companies mutual fund is holding. Then the second part is duration, but duration is a little bit of a tricky aspect here, because when one looks at duration, then longer duration debt fund will get affected by interest rate movements far higher than a smaller duration fund. So then let's say they are short duration funds, they are low duration funds, and then they are longer dated funds, right? And then they are let's say dynamic funds, so which kind of play across durations. So unless one has a view on interest rates, which is very strong, one can probably look at a dynamic kind of funds which plays across durations. And if one has a view on interest rate going up and down, then probably a longer dated fund might make sense. Yeah.
So I think, Manshu, I'll let you summarize. What you're saying is you should look at the percentage of the assets in corporate bonds versus government. And even corporate, you look at how much percentage in small cap. And if the majority of the amounts has in government, right at this moment, it's safer to be in that debt fund. I think that what you are alluding to?
Right.
Okay. Fine. I think, Harpalji, I hope that answers your question. In case you have follow-up question to that, please feel free to type it out. Let me take the next question from Firdaus.
And Harpal does have another question. He asks whether he can invest in Apple, and I think we do have an answer for that.
Yeah, so we have a global tech ETF. So the two ways you can invest in Apple, Harpalji. One way is that we have ETFs, a global tech ETF we have on our platforms. Through that, you can really invest in not just Apple, but all the top $4 trillion companies that you see. So you can invest through that fund. It's called, I think, Invest QQQ, if I am not mistaken. It's a big fund, and you can go through that. The second option is that you can also fund direct equity of Apple through Crystal. You will have to just qualify as a private wealth account, and there's certain kind of documentation in terms of your kind of asset that you will need in terms of income asset, because we being headquartered in Singapore, we have to adhere to the guidelines and the regulations of Singapore, and they have kind of regulations on to which all customers we can offer direct equities and stocks. So yes, you can do both through Crystal. If you don't qualify for the accredited account or some private wealth account, doesn't matter. Through ETFs, you can always go. And I personally prefer ETFs because they are low cost, unit level is low, and you can get a very good exposure and very kind of low risk exposure to a lot of good tech products out there. In fact, our algo has been recommending tech, very tech and healthcare very frequently over the last few weeks to a lot of our customers. I hope that kind of answers the question for Harpalji and Hanumanji as well, who says, can I invest through ETF in any of the global markets? So yeah, I mean, we have kind of have a big universe of ETFs on our platform. So if you are looking for Asia Pacific funds, Brazil, South America, North America, Europe, we have quite a few funds. Most of the funds that you will find will be on in a USD denominated thing, because that's the most credible market to operate in. You get right liquidity. So you can definitely expose yourself to many markets, many geographies through ETFs that we have. Let me take this next question, Firdaus. I think this is more of an operational thing, where Firdaus has asked that what has been our experience on ETF? Have we seen similar redemptions, and do you inform all the investors that ETF invest regarding redemption pressure? So Firdaus, let me just tell you why this redemption pressure doesn't really arise at our end when it comes to ETFs. ETFs is not like mutual funds. So when you buy a mutual fund, you buy it from a fund house. You don't buy it from a stock exchange. We are not a fund house. So you are not buying. When you transit on a platform, Firdausji, you place a request, we buy that ETF from the stock market. So like a stock, there is a buy and a sell order. So there is no, I mean, the request to buy and sell do come, but we have not faced any liquidity issues because the ETFs that you will see on our platforms are all high grade ETFs. That means they are big funds. A lot of people are trading them. So you always buy as a buyer on those. So we have faced no such pressure on redemptions. And in fact, I can say with a lot of confidence because this is the worst of the market pressure that we've seen in a lifetime, worse than 2008. And if you haven't seen any much redemption requests during these times, it will kind of address to you the kind of credibility of ETFs, how the fund house risk is very low, very, very low in terms of ETFs. And I say very low because fund house still managing the fund, but the redemption request doesn't go to the fund house, it goes to the stock market. So we haven't faced any such situations. It's been so far very easy for us to trade in, trade out. The second part is that we haven't had most of the requests because Crystal has so far the last 4 years that we've been operating this market, we have never oversold any product to a client. And the reason we so because when we recommend a fund to a client, it's the algo that recommends. So there's not a human that recommends the fund for you. It's an algo that recommends. And there is no other incentive except performance in recommending the right fund to a client. So an algo has been very robust, and whatever funds we have recommended to our clients, they have come back to kind of assure clients that asset allocation distribution was more reliable. And in fact, you should go to our LinkedIn page, and we have posted a graph there where you kind of can see the performance of the algo recommended portfolio versus the benchmark. And algo recommended portfolios have done better purely because it's more disciplined and emotions don't play with those. So I hope that answers your question and why we don't have redemption pressure. And wherever, so we haven't had, but since right now we don't have regular funds, so I really can't answer that. What if is not really a question for us right now. Himanshu, there's a next question from Firdaus on Huawei. Like, why is Huawei not the China ETF on Crystal? I don't have a smart answer. It's a more a technical thing. I will have to look at the fund direction and strategy to be able to answer the question. But Himanshu, if you have any light on that, please feel free to chip in.
No, I think we will get back to Firdaus on this. So I think we'll get back to Firdaus on this sometime after.
Yeah, so I think the next question is from Nitin again. what are the tax implications for a resident in India on investments in international ETFs? So Nitin, we have an entire document on this on our FAQs. You can click on it and kind of explain. But broadly speaking, you have this long-term and short-term capital gain tax that those things apply. And the tax, but the only thing is the tax that is applicable on you is based on your income bracket. So if you fall in the 20% income bracket or you fall in the 30% income bracket, that pure income tax rate will apply on your capital gains. If it's, and then there are short-term and capital gains. That is a broad direction on the taxation part of these international investments, whether it's ETFs and stock. But the detailed breakup it's there on the FAQ section. So if you go to the FAQs of Crystal.ai and there's a clear button on the tax part, it will give you the breakup. So there you can get a detailed breakdown on things. But it's not very prohibitive in terms of really stretching out and investing globally. So it will not stop you from investing out. I think Himanshu, next question, I think you can take it better than anonymous attendee. Is intraday trading good now since there's a lot of fluctuation?
Yeah, so coming to intraday trading, yeah, the volatility is really high, and there are some strategies which work in these environments, but it kind of depends whether one has that strategy or not, whether you have backtested that strategy and how long you have backtested that strategy and what has been the performance. So depending on that, I mean, if one wants, one can definitely go ahead with intraday strategies. Yeah. But when the prices are so low, personally, I would love to go long for a longer time horizon. Yeah.
Yeah, I think whoever just asked this question, timing the market, a lot of people think. So let me just allude you to one thing. Typically, people, when they enter the stock market for the first time and they get lucky, they assume that was not luck, that was a sheer skill and brilliance that gave them returns, and people's confidence increased and they kind of make big bets and they lose, sometimes a lot of money and sometimes their shirt and everything. So timing the market is something that nobody is able to achieve consistently year over year. One thing that has kind of come to the truth, the cardinal truth that has come to the fore is that markets are always right. And hence, I think you should not worry that whether you invested in something today or after 3 days or after 4 days, on a 3-year horizon, on a 5-year horizon, even a difference of a month will not matter much. As long as you are entering the right sector and you have done your asset allocation judiciously. Rajesh, there's a question from Rajesh ji on charges for ETF for China and America. Let me, Rajesh, you answer this question in 2 parts. One is the money that you pay to Crystal and the money you pay to ETFs. So kind of, there's no, so when you kind of buy ETFs on Crystal.ai, till 10,000 USD of investments, there is no money that you pay to Crystal.ai. So there is no charge on any commission that you pay to Crystal. There's no brokerage you pay to Crystal. But every ETF, because it's managed by a fund house, has to cover the expenses. So on the page, I think you can see it, if I'm not mistaken, hovers between 0.5 to 1% is the expense ratio of the ETFs. I think that's where you'll find the expense ratio of ETFs. They're very cheap as compared to the regular funds. And I repeat that again and again because a lot of people miss that. A lot of people in India, a lot of very experienced investors in India are not familiar with ETFs. I find them very good. I find them just because the expense ratio is so low, their returns look that much better. I have looked at few. I think Himanshu, you would have looked at portfolios over the last few weeks that we have been analyzing portfolios. So we are getting a lot of portfolios from clients for them to review, to kind of scan their portfolios. And the expense ratios of even diversified, like 2% is the expense ratio. So, I mean, that's kind of sinful that, a fund is not making returns and you're paying 2% from your performance to the fund manager. And given the fact that the difference between a kind of a FD or PPF and a fund house, I mean, if you take 2% off out of it, there's very little left for you to really feel good about. So I would generally say that an expense ratio of less than 1% is a good place to be in to really manage your money in the long term. Himanshu, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so just to give a specific example, the SPY ETF, which is S&P 500 ETF on Crystal platform, that has an expense ratio of around 0.1% or 0.1% actually, 0.1 to 0.2%. While if you look at the mutual fund, which has recently launched, the Motilal Oswal S&P 500 mutual fund, that has a 0.5% to 1% expense ratio, and ETFs are generally known to be of low expense ratio in the range of, let's say, 0.1% or 0.2%, like that. So broadly the returns, the net returns net of expense ratio on ETFs are generally really high.
I think I'll take the last question from Hamad. I think that's more important. Can I buy anytime and sell through ETF? Like, can you buy and sell anytime in ETFs? Yes. There is no if and but around it. ETF is like a stock on a stock market. You go on Crystal, you just put the buy order. When the market's open, we put your order in the queue and we buy them. You put a sell order. Again, the market's open, we put them in a queue and execute them and we sell them. So there is no fund manager who has to really run around and get cash to pay you back. It's just directly on the stock market, and it works very efficiently the way you have in stock. It's just that since we are not set up like a brokerage, so we don't really operate in real time. So you have to really wait for the markets to open, and some 20-minute window as we kind of operate the queues, order queues on the exchange, it will kind of move in that fashion. So yes, Hanumanji, you can buy and sell anytime in an ETF on our stock market. So that's a quick answer for that. I think there's a question from Nipun on the Franklin equity funds.
Yes.
So Himanshu, you want to comment on that? What has happened on the debt side? Does it really affect things on the equity side?
No, yeah. So I think let me put it this way: these are separate funds and separate schemes of these funds, right? So the redemption pressure, which has happened on debt side, or one of the schemes of debt side. So fixed income also has several schemes, right? What has happened on with the 6 of these schemes, right, might have little impact on the equity funds or other fixed income. Just the fact that a lot of times when the AMC, the fund house, which kind of which has the ability to support in terms of borrowing and paying investors, that might have reduced a little bit. But other than that, these are separate funds, separate schemes. So to that extent, there is not much impact.
Okay.
We have a new question from Firdaus. He asked, are you aware of ETF which invests in Vietnam?
Yes, there's an ETF we have on Vietnam. I think for the ticker of it, but if you search on the product page of Crystal.ai, you will find a Vietnam fund. We have a ETF on Vietnam. I have not been included on the performance, to be honest, but I have seen Vietnam because at some point of time I was also very interested in that geography. So yes, Firdaus, we do have a fund in ETF, a Vietnam ETF. But just to carry, I don't think it's a Vietnam ETF, but it's a USD denominated ETF. It's not necessarily trading in the same current currency of Vietnam. So is there any? There's a question from Mr. Kishore Koturthi ji. Is there any guidance in terms of urgency situation? I'm assuming, Kishore ji, you mean by urgency means that you have to take money out urgently. I'm assuming so there's some kind of emergency need that you have, financial need, and you want to really liquidate. So I think you are asking what to liquidate in these times. Should I liquidate an equity side or should we liquidate on the debt side? Himanshu, any points on that? What will be the right asset to kind of liquidate during these times?
So Kishore, it really depends on what is the holding that you have right now in terms of your equity and debt and liquid. Ideally, liquid funds are kept for emergency and urgent situations. So if you have liquid funds in your portfolio, then those should be the first ones to kind of liquidate. If not, then probably the second one would be the debt funds, and then after that, so that's the pecking order in which the emergency needs should be met. But again, it actually depends on your portfolio and what kind of funds you are holding. So for example, in an equity fund, if you are holding some, let's say, not so good funds, then it might be probably a good time to clean that up and relook and resign your portfolio. So it depends
I think
a lot on
that's a good kind of pecking order, Himanshu. I think that's quite clear. That so if I understand right, you said you start from liquid funds, if to kind of liquidate, get some cash out. If that you don't have those, then you go for debt funds, and if you can liquidate those out, and if you don't have debt fund, then I think then you touch the equity side. I think that is the pecking order.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi Kishore, I hope that answered your question. Yeah, so just to add on, we'll do these Sunday sessions. The next session we'll do and kind of we'll communicate the date to all of you. We'll kind of cover the question of where to invest, how to really plan your investments in terms of asset allocation, and really how do you look at your asset classes from the risk point of view. So we'll kind of address these questions in the next session. You will see these things on our Twitter feed. So one thing I'll recommend to all of you that Twitter is the place we kind of give recommendations out and directions out on the markets. So please follow us on the Twitter handle of Crystal India. We have two Twitter handles, Crystal Global and Crystal India. I would request all of you to kind of follow us on the Crystal India handle. We kind of post commentaries on it, on things happen in the market. We kind of put comments on things happen during the day. Those things are kind of, you can get it. I think Kishore,
Siddhant, before we close the session, we have two more questions from Kishore.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the first question is, what about future guidance from Crystal.ai, and where can they see Beat Sharp and Square Ratio?
Okay, so Kishorji, I think the future guidance in terms of, you look at how we have kind of the investment committee view on things is that we are looking at tech stocks, we are looking at software companies which have kind of doing good in these times. We're looking at healthcare equipment companies, which we see are very good potential going forward. And we also kind of see value in global diversification now. So, and the reason we say so is because as the post-COVID world will mean that a lot of countries will kind of build reliance of the supply chain disruption that happened because of COVID will kind of make a lot of countries, make a lot of companies build strengths, kind of diversify their supply chain over different countries or kind of build it locally. What it means is that the correlation between the geographies may kind of weaken a little bit, and this is my personal opinion. So I definitely see a value in global diversification going forward. I see that the India market and the US market will really complement each other in terms of managing the risk and hence kind of giving a better return profile. But to go specific to your question, I would suggest that we can run the algo for you and tell you what is the future for what are that funds that can help, what are the Sharpe ratio and kind of other ratios that you will get from the portfolio. So if you can kind of, if you haven't completed your account creation process with Crystal, I urge you to do that. Then one of your RMs can really run the algo for you and tell you which are funds, and in that recommendation you will see the Sharpe ratio value, you will see the CAGR value that the portfolio is recommending to you, and it will also show you the allocations that is there on the asset side. So those things you will see. On the beta and alpha, okay, so let me take this: investment in USA now better or after US elections? This is again, Himanshu, I know this is again a little more of a broad timing question. You want to, you have a view on it. I kind of stay neutral. I say, you know what, things are going to go still up. It's not that things are going to go down in a US election, but that's a different view. I mean, it's not a one company view that we have in US elections just now.
So let me kind of take it up, Rai. So I remember 9th November 2016, US election results were there, and the morning, I remember that morning, the markets tanked sharply, right? And after that, the only thing that markets have done in US is going up and up and up, right? Yeah. So I think even if the perception initially was that the markets will go down over the next couple of months or quarters in 2016, the markets kept on going up because of the policies and whatever reforms were done there, right? Mm-hmm. So again, at the risk of repeating, there is no. It's a futile exercise to time the market. If we start now, then probably we should start in a manner that that we have, let's say, put in some capital, not all the capital. And after the US election, if there are more opportunities available, then it makes sense to put more money at that time. But the idea is in
Let me kind of add on that, Kishorji. Kishorji, I think the two things that are happening. One is the election. I think there is also a discussion on the second wave of COVID infections coming in the US. So if your view is on a stock market, very difficult to say that investing now or later. But if you're talking about the markets per se, then it will be kind of difficult for anybody to say that markets will stay at this level in the long run. Neither can India market or US market can stay at this level in the long run. Neither can the economy be. So if I were to really take a bet, I would take a market bet. Personally, I will go for an index fund and just go along on the market, because I know the market's not going to stay. It's something like what people are saying about oil, right? What is a good price to buy oil? Everybody knows that it can't stay at this level forever. So if your horizon is kind of more than a year or so, yeah, it's a good time to buy oil, whether it's today or tomorrow or after a few months. It can't stay at this level. So I think broad-based markets view is they can't stay at this level. So yes, if you take a exposure to the broad market, go ahead. Particular stock here and there, very difficult to have a definitive view. If Warren Buffett can't tell which stock is going to go up in this time in market, I would urge that we also stay cautious. Hey, Abhita, if there are no more questions, then should we?
Yes, Siddhant, I think we don't have any more questions. I hope the session was insightful as we hoped, and we have answered a lot of questions. Thank you so much. I will be sharing the recording of this webinar session soon with all the questions answered, and hope you had a good time talking to us.
Yeah, it was lovely chatting with all of you. Thank you, Kishorji. Thank you, Hanuman ji, Nipun. And if I am mistaken, I apologize. I'm quickly going down the names that who take the effort to ask the question. Harpal ji, thank you for asking questions. Please, as mentioned on your screen, follow us on Twitter. That's where we are posting regular updates on markets. Ask us questions there. If you have any, is the market movements are there, and you have you want any comment from Crystal, please post a question to us on the Twitter handle, and Himanshu and I, we kind of keep looking at the channel, we answer it from there. So till that time, till the next Sunday, we'll return next Sunday with more information about how to plan your investments, how to go about it. So till that time, thanks for me, and thanks for attending the session.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.